All right, last two muscles, here we go. So first we're starting with the extensor digitorum longus. We can see, let's highlight this muscle first right here. So extensor digitorum longus right here, and it'll extend into all of our digits right here. And so if we look at this picture on the left, we can see it here, and then it branches out into digits 2 through 4, or 2 through 5, excuse me. And it has a couple of origins. So first we can see it has an origin on the tibia and fibula. So on the fibula, first, it has an origin on the head and medial surface. And we also attach onto the tibia on the lateral condyle. And on the interosseous membrane. So that interosseous membrane between the tibia and fibula, and this one is going to attach, the origin will be a little bit more proximal on that interosseous membrane. But you can kind of see it here where it's kind of right in here, attaching onto that interosseous membrane. Here's that attachment onto the tibia, and then we'll have a small insertion onto the, origination or attachment onto that medial surface of the fibula. So medial surface of the fibula, lateral aspect of the tibia, and the interosseous membrane right here. So then if we look here at our model, zoom in around, we can see, once again illustrated, that medial surface, that lateral condyle, and if I add in the connective tissue here, you can see, if we come back here just a little bit of attachment onto that interosseous membrane. All right. And then as we cross the ankle joint, we insert onto the 2nd through 5th toes at the dorsal aponeurosis at the base of the distal phalanges. So it's a big mouthful, so let's break that down. So 2nd to 5th toes. So we're looking here. We have our toes. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. And so where we're going to insert is on the distal phalanx. So this most distal one right here of 2 through 5. We're on the dorsal aspect, so on the top. And the dorsal aponeurosis is going to be the kind of broad sheath of connective tissue that will cover that most distal aspect, that most distal joint, on the top of that joint. So the dorsal part of the aponeurosis, that broad band of tissue that covers the whole distal joint of that distal phalange. So 2nd through 5th toes at dorsal There's no I. All right, so let's come back here and let's take a look. So if we zoom in here, so here's that joint right there, and we can see that we are inserting onto this aponeurosis. So this aponeurosis right there. So let's see if I can click it. There we go. So this distal interphalangeal ligament is part of that aponeurosis. We have some other accessory ligaments there as well. But the aponeurosis that isn't shown is just going to be a big broad band that kind of covers the whole thing. And that's where it's going to insert onto that base of the distal phalanx right there. So then the action. We're crossing a couple of joints. We're crossing the ankle joint, which is called, the proper term is the talocrural joint. We also have another joint called the subtalar joint, so it's just below the talus. Remember, the talus is this bone right here that articulates with the tibia and fibula. So subtalar joint right here. And then the interphalangeal joints right here between the phalanxes, the distal, intermediate, and proximal phalanxes. So first at the talocrural joint, or the ankle joint, we're going to do dorsiflexion. Okay, and then at the subtalar joint, I'm calling it an S, we're going to do eversion, or pronation. So when we think about where this muscle is and where it's running, we're running mostly on this lateral aspect of the ankle. So we're running over here, and so when we fire that muscle, we're going to be pulling just a little bit in this direction right here. So we'll pull just a little bit, so we're doing eversion. It's not a primary everter, but it is one of the muscles that help us evert. And then finally, it will extend the metatarsal phalangeal joints, or MTP joints. So between the metatarsal bones in our foot, and the proximal row of phalanxes, and the interphalangeal joints. So these little joints. Let's zoom in here. So these joints right here, these interphalangeal joints, is where we'll have extension. So all right. So that's extensor digitorum longus. And then our last muscle here, extensor hallucis. Similar to our extensor digitorum longus, except we are just at the big toe, our first toe. So let's highlight here. Here's our extensor hallucis longus. It extends all the way down to our first toe. And we can see it on this image right here. It gets tucked. Oh, it gets tucked just under right here. And right there. All right. So extensor digitorum or excuse me, extensor hallucis longus. So extensor hallucis gives us a cue as to what it's doing. So extensor hallucis originates on the middle third of the medial surface of the fibula. And on the interosseous membrane. So then if we take a look here at anatomy, we're going to take away that. Here's our extensor hallucis longus. And you can see it's originating on that medial aspect of the fibula. And then if we turn around, we can see that origination where it would attach to the interosseous membrane. So if I add the connective tissue right on there, we see that interosseous membrane covers it. This is the posterior side right here we're looking at. And so when we turn back around, we can see it definitely has this broad origin on that interosseous membrane as well as on the fibula right here. Okay. We're going back here. Similar to the extensor digitorum longus, it's going to have a very similar insertion, almost the same, except just with the first toe. So at the first toe, the dorsal aponeurosis at the base of the distal phalanx, all right, so of the first toe right there, and then similar to extensor digitorum longus, it will share the action at the talocrural joint and metatarsal phalangeal and interphalangeal joints. So let's write those first. So the talocrural joint, remember that's that big ankle joint right here, our ankle joint. So at the talocrural joint, we're going to do dorsiflexion. And then we are going to extend MTP and IP joints. So then at the subtalar joint, we do something a little bit different because now we are inserting more, we're going from lateral to medial right here, remember. So a little bit unique for the extensor hallucis longus, depending on the position of the foot, the initial position of the foot, we may either help with pronation, so eversion, or supination, inversion. So I'll do this. No, we're not going to use pronation, supination. We're going to use inversion and eversion because typically we refer to inversion and eversion ankle sprains. That's what we'll do. What did I do here? I did eversion, so we'll do inversion, eversion. So then let's look at that extensor hallucis longus as it inserts, right? So we can see here it's inserting onto that base of the distal phalanx. Let's add in the connective tissue. We can see that it inserts just distal to a lot of these ligamentous structures that hold together the joint. And so when it comes down, and inserts right here, it will allow us to pull in this direction right here, pull the ankle in this way, or depending on if we're already inverted, we may be able to pull it in this direction, inversion or eversion. Okay? Extensor hallucis longus. But for our purposes in class, we're just calling it extensor hallucis. All right? You can say extensor hallucis longus if you want. If we want to be proper with the naming convention. All right?